Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to take some of these models here that I've got here and take them out of the package. We're going to remove the mold release. I've got a white paper towel here, and I'll be able to show you some of the mold release that I'm talking about. You'll also need a bowl to actually wash it in. A stiff bristle brush, not too stiff. I just use a standard household brush, a 1-inch wide, and you'll also need some soap, and I have the soap right here. I just use hand soap. You know, you can use dishwashing soap or whatever other soap that you've got. All right, so let's get started. Now, I've got some Warlord Games cavalry miniatures here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take them out of the package, and then I'll show what I'm talking about. When you paint a miniature, or let me rephrase that, when you get a miniature out of the package, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's usually some kind of powdery substance or a coating that gets all over your fingers and your hands, and what that is it's like a powder, like a talcum powder that's put inside the mold so that when you fill the mold with either lead or plastic, when you open the mold up, the model will not stick to the mold. It's called mold release. These models, they look like they don't really need a whole lot of cleaning, but that mold release is there. And I can feel it getting on my fingers already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a paper towel, and I'm going to try to wipe some of this off just so you can see on the paper towel it's kind of like a blackish powder. This model was actually pretty clean, so you didn't see a whole lot on there. And we'll get into it in just a second. Now, this is all that needs to be done before you go and trim. Yeah, I can feel it. Before you go in and trim the model. Because when you go to trim the model, any part that you cut off, any flash or any extra pewter or lead or plastic that you cut off, obviously, you can see it really good right there. Obviously will not have any mold release under the part where you cut it. Okay, so oops, stuck on my little towel here. Now just put all the pieces in a bowl. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just getting them out and I'm just putting them in the bowl. We're basically just going to put them all in there. Now there's a meme out there that talks, there is some company out there, I'm not going to mention any names, it's an imperial company that makes miniatures, and there's this, because that's a powdery substance that gets on your fingers, and any time that you make or glue together the miniatures, you get that on your fingers. Some people are saying that that is made with crack cocaine. So that crack cocaine makes you addicted to these models and wanting to keep coming back. That's not really true. All right, so now what we're going to do is, what we're going to do? I'm going to turn my water on, and I put it on hot, right? And I want it to run so that the water actually gets hot. Let me get this plastic out of here. Let me get this paper out of here. And then there's a little extra plastic. You can toss that. There we go. And I'm just going to put everything in the bowl. We're going to do 2 packages of cavalry command. You don't want to do too many models at any one time. Now, I've noticed that inside this package, there's actually a lot of this powdery residue. I don't know if you can see that. I run my finger across it. I thought putting the paper towel behind it would make it obvious, but it doesn't. It's hard to see with the glare. So here we go. Now look at that. You see that on my fingertip? Exactly. That is actually the mold release powder that's on the mold of the pewter or plastic models that you're actually here to clean. So what we're going to do is, I thought about naming this video how to wash your figure, but that's a totally different step. That's that's not what we're doing here. We are physically washing them, but we're not color washing them. Now, if you spray painted these, and that's what I do usually, I prime with a spray paint. Your paint will stick to the mold release, and then the paint will just flake off or fall off of your model. Okay, you can start to see the water starting to get a little dirty. So what I do is I put a little soap in there, squirt, squirt. Put some water in there. And then I'm using my brush to kind of just agitate the water. You can see how the water's turning like a murky brown gray color, and that's the mold release coming off of the models. Just agitate your models a little bit in there. Let some of that mold release come off. You don't have to be too thorough in this step, even though I tend to do it. Normally, I'll do this quite a while, and sometimes I'll even do 2 coats. Like I will drain the water out, because you can see how dirty it is. I use the brush to hold the pewter inside the bowl while I pour it out. Then I add some more soap to it. And then now my water is nice and warm, and I go ahead and get some water in there, get some soap, and we do it again. Now what I'm doing here is getting that mold release to come off of the models. Sometimes I'll turn them over, or I will just agitate. If you have too many models in the bowl, it's less effective. The less number of models you have. I mean, you could technically do 1 model at a time, but I think about a dozen models is about all you really need to do. Dozen-foot models, maybe even 24-foot models. Like I could put my entire Roman army or Roman unit in 1 bowl and do it that way, and that's fine. So now I've got just a drizzle, not a super fast pace. I reach in and I grab it and I just hold it in my palm, and then I use the brush and I use the running water on the model to wipe off any of the excess soap, because soap will do the exact same thing that mold release will do. It will stick to your model and it will cause a residue, a soap residue, to linger on your model, and you don't want that either. You don't want to have a mold release, and you also don't want to have the soap. So what I do is, at this point, I'm letting the running water and the brush rub off all of the excess soap, but also any excess mold release. So it's basically a clean model. Now, you want to do this on your plastic and your pewter and lead models. Don't worry about it. They're not going to rust, and the plastic is not going to worry about it. No problem. So you just go through this step, and this is the longest process of this step. Okay, so just bear with me. Let me think if I can think of any anecdotes to tell you. Now, when you spray with your spray paint, right? You're going to do light coats, you're going to do it on pewter, you're going to do it on plastic. Have you ever had a time when you were gaming and your model just all of a sudden the paint started to flake off? Well, a lot of people experienced that with the soft plastic models, thinking that it was paint not sticking to soft plastic, when in fact it's just the fact that they weren't cleaning the mold residue off, or the mold release off. If you do that, and if you use a good primer, one that sticks to plastic or pewter, I like to use Krylon Fusion because it fuses with the plastic. And pewter models don't really have that problem so much as the plastic models do. So yeah, Krylon Fusion's a great spray primer. Some people use the brush-on primers. I don't think they're as good. I think the spray-on gets you a better coating, and that gets you a better, I think it has an adherence factor that's a lot better. Okay, now I know that this is a lot of water, and you have to be prepared to kind of use some water to do this. I do not recommend putting it in the washing machine or something like that. I know there are people that put their models in a bowl, maybe with a lid that's porous, like like a strainer. They put their models in a bowl like a strainer with a lid, and they put it in the dishwasher, and that will work, but I think that leaves a little bit of the soap residue. I personally prefer to do it by hand, and I do this on all of my models. So all of my Hail Caesar models have been done this way. Warhammer 40K, my bolt action models. Sometimes I don't do it on my 6mm models because I'm not too concerned about that. But anything 15mm or better, you really need to do it. Okay, just clean your bowl out and put everything to the side, and that is basically how you wash your model. Now just let them dry, and then you glue everything together, trim them off with an X-Acto knife, and then prime them with probably a spray primer. And then once you like trim them with your X-Acto knife, glue them together, prime them, you'll be ready to paint them. All right, now I put them on a towel. I kind of let them set. I kind of roll it up, to carry it over to my gaming table. This just helps me carry it, and then I just leave them on the towel because they're probably still a little bit wet. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming out and checking out this video. If you liked it, please like it. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. And come back and check out any future videos that I make about wargaming and miniatures.